Suzanne Clark Simpson, aged 51 at the time of her disappearance, was a resident of Olmos Park, Texas, an affluent suburb of San Antonio. Born and raised in San Antonio, she completed her higher education at the University of Texas at Austin in 1995, obtaining a degree in communications. Following graduation, she worked for 6 years at Dell Computers before transitioning into the real estate sector. Over a span of 13 years, she established herself as a successful real estate agent with Mix Realty Company, where colleagues noted her extensive knowledge of the San Antonio property market and her dedication to clients. Suzanne was recognized for her ability to maintain high standards in client relations, often contacting clients in Europe outside of normal business hours to ensure service quality. Those who worked with her described her as professional, approachable, and consistently attentive. Suzanne's family life included her husband, Brad Chandler Simpson, and their 4 children, aged 20, 18, 15, and 5 years old. She maintained an active lifestyle, participating in running events, including 22 marathons, and had qualified for the Boston Marathon, highlighting her commitment to physical activity alongside her professional and family responsibilities. Friends and family recalled Suzanne as a devoted mother, managing both the daily routines of her children and extracurricular commitments, such as school sports, while maintaining a professional career in real estate. Statements from friends and associates describe Brad as confident, but also controlling and jealous. Evidence gathered later indicated that Brad frequently monitored Suzanne's phone location. In August 2024, Suzanne reportedly informed her personal banker, Gabriella Specia, at Frost Bank, that she had been subjected to physical abuse by Brad, and made a statement indicating that, should she go missing, authorities should search for her in a lake. Sue's mother, Barbara Clark, confirmed awareness of at least one prior physical altercation between the couple, and had devised a plan for Suzanne and her youngest child to temporarily reside with her, though this plan was not implemented before Suzanne's disappearance. On Sunday, October 6, 2024, Suzanne attended a social event with her husband and 5-year-old daughter at the Argyle, an exclusive members-only dining club in Alamo Heights. Witnesses reported that a verbal altercation occurred between Suzanne and Brad during the event, which escalated physically according to accounts from the child and surveillance evidence. Surveillance footage from later that evening recorded Suzanne and her daughter at a local grocery store between 8:40 p.m. and 8:51 p.m. At approximately 9:15 p.m., Suzanne contacted a family friend, indicating she would visit. Simultaneously, she called her mother, reporting that Brad had assaulted her, citing pain in her arm, back, and neck. During this period, Brad accessed their AT&T account and suspended Suzanne's mobile phone service. Subsequent surveillance confirmed that Suzanne arrived at the family friend's residence in Alamo Heights at 9:25 p.m. Phone location data indicated that by 10:22 p.m., Suzanne's phone was back at the Simpsons' residence, marking the last recorded location of her device. A neighbor across the street reported hearing a physical struggle in the front garden between Suzanne and Brad around 10:10 p.m. to 11 p.m., which escalated until Suzanne fled toward the wooded area east of the property. The neighbor described hearing 2 to 3 screams emanating from the brush, which were later identified as the last sounds from Suzanne Simpson. Following the incident, Brad Simpson departed the residence in his black 2019 GMC Sierra, returning approximately 1 to 2 hours later. Forensic analysis of Brad's phone data indicated that he engaged in repeated cycling of his device into lockdown mode shortly after the incident, a pattern interpreted by investigators as an attempt to avoid detection. Surveillance from H-E-B grocery store at 12:33 a.m. and subsequent footage captured Brad transporting multiple items in the cargo bed of his pickup, including an ice chest and white rubbish bags. Geolocation data and receipts from purchases between 9:53 a.m. and 10 a.m. the following day confirmed Brad acquired construction supplies, including cement and heavy-duty rubbish bags, at a Home Depot in Bourne, Texas, using cash rather than his usual payment methods. Subsequent location tracking indicated stops at the Kemble County Solid Waste Facility, a petrol station, and extended travel west into Bandera and Medina counties, with changes in attire noted in surveillance records. Investigators documented sequential removal and repositioning of items within Brad's vehicle throughout this period, including the disposal of some rubbish bags and the cleaning of the vehicle's passenger compartments and a car wash in San Pedro, with forensic traces of cement recovered during inspection. Brad Simpson did not immediately report Suzanne missing. Nearly 24 hours after her disappearance, a concerned family friend contacted him, noting that he had failed to notify authorities. Brad subsequently left a voicemail with Olmos Park Police Chief Fidel Villegas, reporting that Suzanne had been missing since approximately 11 p.m. the previous night, citing a lost mobile phone at HEB as an explanation, a claim later contradicted by phone location data. Brad did not attend a scheduled follow-up interview with police, relocating instead to his ranch property in Bandera County. During this time frame, text message records documented communication between Brad and James Conner, referencing transportation and concealment of unspecified items. Investigators also identified digital notes authored by Brad on October 8th, including references to prior physical assaults on Suzanne and apologies to family members, providing insight into internal acknowledgement of abusive behavior. Brad was arrested at 1:30 a.m., October 8, 2024, on charges including assault, family violence, and unlawful restraint, showing lacerations and bruising consistent with a physical altercation, but displaying limited emotional response regarding Suzanne's disappearance. Upon examination of the Simpson residence, law enforcement identified physical evidence consistent with witness accounts, including an indentation at the bottom of the stairway, aligning with the 5-year-old daughter's report of physical contact during the altercation. During initial investigative procedures, authorities recovered 1 bag of cement, heavy-duty rubbish bags, a heavy-duty rubbish bin, and a metal firewood rack at the Simpson residence. Household records confirmed that the family utilized the type of white rubbish bags with red handles observed in surveillance footage of Brad's vehicle. Additional searches revealed firearms stored in a locked room, including an unlicensed short-barrel rifle, leading to federal charges related to prohibited weapons. On October 9th, Texas Rangers identified a burn site at the Bandera County property, recovering a destroyed laptop and multiple mobile devices, including 3 phones belonging to Brad Simpson. Searches of James Conner's residence later yielded a fully automatic AK-47 rifle, concealed behind a wall-mounted television, retrieved from Brad's weapons vault shortly after the disappearance. By December 5, 2024, grand jury indictments identified further concealed items, including a reciprocating saw with Suzanne Simpson's DNA, forming a core piece of evidence in the ensuing murder investigation. These early forensic findings established a timeline of post-disappearance activity, documenting Brad Simpson's movements, purchases, and attempts to conceal physical evidence, providing a foundational framework for prosecutorial strategy. Following the initial collection of physical evidence and forensic analysis, investigators consolidated extensive data to build a comprehensive understanding of events surrounding Suzanne Simpson's disappearance. Surveillance footage, phone records, and witness statements were compiled into detailed investigative reports. Brad Simpson's movements on the night of October 6, 2024, and the subsequent day were mapped and corroborated by multiple sources, including stored transaction receipts, geolocation data, and security camera footage. The presence of items, such as heavy-duty rubbish bags, a firewood rack, cement, and an ice chest in Brad's vehicle, aligned with the items recovered from the family home, indicating a sequence of deliberate actions to transport or conceal materials. Grand jury proceedings in December 2024 formalized charges against Brad Simpson, including murder, tampering with evidence with intent to impair a human corpse, tampering with physical evidence, and possession of prohibited weapons. The indictment cited forensic evidence, including DNA traces of Suzanne on a reciprocating saw that Brad attempted to conceal, as critical to the prosecution's case. Legal filings documented the timeline of Brad's purchases, vehicle movements, and surveillance activity, providing investigators with corroborated evidence of sequential events and the intentional nature of his actions after Suzanne's disappearance. Brad Simpson's legal representation, led by solicitor Stephen Gilmore, submitted a motion to quash the indictment on December 3, 2024. The motion argued that the charges were indefinite and ambiguous, contending that the prosecution lacked evidence specifying the manner of death or precise acts causing Suzanne's death, thereby preventing an adequate defense. The defense emphasized the absence of a recovered body or medical examiner report as grounds for dismissal. During proceedings before Judge Joel Perez on April 22, 2025, both the prosecution and defense presented arguments regarding the sufficiency of evidence. Prosecutor Casey Sandoval maintained that, under Texas law, the state was required to prove that Brad intended to cause Suzanne's death, and that his actions directly resulted in it, without needing to specify the exact method or cause. Judge Perez ultimately denied the motion to dismiss on April 29, 2025, ruling that the evidence alleged was sufficient to allow the murder charge to proceed. This ruling established the framework for trial, despite the absence of Suzanne's body, and reinforced the prosecutorial position that circumstantial and corroborated evidence could support a murder charge. Following Suzanne Simpson's disappearance, law enforcement agencies, including the Texas Rangers, Olmos Park Police, the FBI, and multiple county sheriff's departments, conducted extensive searches across multiple counties. Areas of focus included the wooded regions east of the Simpson residence, where neighbor reports indicated screams, interstate corridors associated with Brad Simpson's travel, and the family's ranch property in Bandera County. Investigators documented environmental conditions, searched waterways, and employed forensic and cadaver detection methods in an effort to locate Suzanne. Despite these exhaustive searches, as of October 2025, her remains had not been recovered. Law enforcement spokespeople, including Texas DPS Representative Dion Cockrell, stated that investigations were ongoing and emphasized that cases without immediate resolution could yield discoveries years later. Investigative efforts were supplemented by analysis of surveillance footage, vehicle tracking, and financial and transactional records to reconstruct Brad Simpson's actions post-disappearance. This comprehensive approach allowed authorities to maintain an evidentiary timeline while continuing physical searches, reflecting both the scope and complexity of the investigation into Suzanne's disappearance. Public attention to Suzanne Simpson's disappearance was heightened by statements from family members, particularly her eldest daughter, Chandler, who posted on social media on November 5, 2024. Her message described concerns regarding Brad Simpson's behavior and encouraged advocacy for victims of domestic violence. Media coverage documented her statement widely, highlighting the family's efforts to raise awareness and maintain public attention on the case. The statements from Chandler and her siblings, including providing evidence to law enforcement that contradicted Brad's accounts, contributed to the execution of search warrants and corroboration of witness testimony. News reporting emphasized both the investigative process and the family's role in prompting official action. Coverage was consistently factual, focusing on confirmed evidence, police statements, and court filings, providing the public with a timeline and rationale for law enforcement operations. Advocacy for domestic violence awareness became an ancillary theme in coverage, emphasizing preventative measures and support structures for individuals in comparable situations, while reinforcing the factual timeline of events. As of September 22, 2025, Judge Perez determined that both prosecution and defense had received sufficient discovery to proceed. The evidence cataloged for trial included extensive surveillance footage, phone records, forensic reports, and witness accounts, totaling an estimated 5 to 6 terabytes of data. Investigators reconstructed Brad Simpson's activities across multiple locations, including the transport of large objects, cash purchases of construction materials, vehicle cleaning, and firearm concealment. Physical evidence included cement traces in the vehicle, items matching those purchased and used by Brad, DNA, analysis of a reciprocating saw, and the discovery of a concealed firearm in James Conner's residence. Prosecution strategy emphasized the chronology of these actions and the correlation with witness testimony and digital records, framing a pattern of deliberate evidence, manipulation, and concealment. Pre-trial hearings were scheduled for January 20, 2026, with the trial itself slated to begin on February 13, 2026. The prosecution's case was centered on the comprehensive assembly of physical, digital, and testimonial evidence, illustrating the scope of post-disappearance activity attributed to Brad Simpson. Brad Simpson remained in Bexar County Jail under administrative segregation, with confinement 23 hours per day. Charges against him included murder, tampering with evidence, tampering with physical evidence, and possession of prohibited weapons, carrying potential sentences ranging from 5 to 99 years or life imprisonment for the murder charge alone. The legal framework allowed prosecution based on intention and causation rather than the specific method of death, aligning with Texas case law concerning murder charges without a recovered body. The investigation and trial preparations reflect extensive coordination among multiple law enforcement agencies, incorporating forensic, digital, and physical evidence to establish a timeline and sequence of events. Suzanne Simpson's body has not been located as of October 2025. The law enforcement maintains ongoing searches. Family members continue advocacy for domestic violence awareness, using public platforms to highlight the case. Authorities encourage anyone with relevant information to contact the Olmos Park Police Department, ensuring the public remains a partner in the investigative process and reinforcing the broader legal and community mechanisms involved in resolving missing person and homicide cases.